However, that program was ended by Joe Biden.
It was the final day of campaigning for candidates, as more than 50% of expected ballots have already been casted through early voting.
They're always up at the end. But now we have a new president in Mexico. Supposed a very nice woman. They say I haven't met her. And I'm going to inform her on day one or sooner that if they don't stop this onslaught of criminals and drugs coming into our country, I'm going to immediately impose a 25% tariff on everything they send in to the United States of America. And the reason I delayed that is you're the first ones I've told it to. Congratulations, North Carolina.
All right, I'm going to start with 4 words. Too close to call, guys. This one is coming right down to the wire. There's been the latest national polling averages that show a 48 to 47% for Harris. However, we do know that initially Harris had a bit of a bounce when she took over as the presidential candidate for Joe Biden. But then the polls became relatively stable in September, early October, but has tightened over the last couple of weeks. Now, we know that national polls just give us an idea of what the voters are going to vote, but we do know that that's not necessarily the best way to predict the result. They do things very differently in the United States than we do in our presidential elections, because the U.S. uses an electoral college system. So there's basically 538 electoral college votes up for grab. Each candidate needs at least 270 to win. Now, there's 50 states. We know most of them vote for the same party, but there's actually a handful of states where both candidates stand a chance of winning, and this rings very true in this particular election. These are called battleground or swing states, as you guys know. Now, the swing states right now, the leads are so small, it's impossible to actually tell who's actually going to be leading coming out of this race. We do know that there's an margin of error about 3 to 4 percentage points, so each candidate could be doing either better or worse than the current number suggests. So I'll give you the latest in regards to where it leads up now. Now, we know Pennsylvania has the 19 electoral votes, where Trump is actually leading by less than 1 percentage margin. Nevada, same thing, with 6 electoral votes, but Harris is leading by less than 1% in both Michigan and Wisconsin, with 15 and 10 electoral votes, respectively. Now, North Carolina, Trump is leading by a little bit more than 1 percentage point, and they have 16 electoral votes, big one there. And finally, in Georgia and Arizona, with 16 and 11 electoral votes, Trump is leading by around 2 or 3 percentage points. And if you look at the trend since Harris joined the race, it does highlight the difference with some of these states. Now, in Arizona, Georgia, Nevada, and North Carolina, the lead has already changed hands several times since August, but as I mentioned, Trump has a small lead at the moment. But in the 3 other states, in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, Harris had led since the beginning of August, sometimes by as large as 2 or 3 percentage points, but the polls have again tightened very significantly, and Trump has a very small lead in Pennsylvania, according to polls only. Remember, voting hasn't started yet. Now, all 3 of those states have been Democratic strongholds before Trump turned them red onto his path to winning back in 2016, but then Biden retook those states in 2020, and if Harris can do the same, then she may be on course to win the election.
Yeah.
Still too close.
I mean, it's really down
After
to
saying
the
all
wire.
that, I'm still not sure which states are going to go which way.
It's a lot, and for Trump, this is the 3rd time on the race as well.
Absolutely.
So it's one to watch out.
1-1 record.
Exactly. And I mean, Paul, you've basically mentioned all the states taking polls, but when do polls actually open and close? So there's no actually set time for when voting is set to begin in the morning of, because the United States is so spread out. There's actually a 3-hour difference between the East Coast and also the West. So tomorrow, local time on the 5th of November, most states will actually begin their voting at 7 a.m. However, others can actually start earlier at 5 a.m. And some states actually start later at 10 a.m. So voting will commence at a variety of times all across the United States, especially notably in New Hampshire, Tennessee, and Washington, where this is also decided by different counties. So even within the state, different counties have different starting times. But polls do close at also a range of times across the country. Voting will end as early as 6 p.m. local time in Indiana and Kentucky, while polls in Hawaii and Alaska, so further out on the west, would not close until midnight U.S. Eastern Time. So I actually have this really interesting map here that you guys could see that tells you of all the different times.
Okay.
Get a closer look at that.
And I think that has to do with like how many registered voters.
Yes, so the bigger the state, the more times it would bring. So you could see that over here in the eastern part of the United States, you'd have a later time where votings would close at 12 a.m. and over further on the western side, it will be much later if you compare it to
now, we're used to seeing, like, a lot of times, like, we have such a time difference over here, basically 12 hours to the East Coast, that we're anticipating, and we will be covering all of the election coverage as well, but we're always trying to wonder, when are they going to call it? When are they going to announce it, basically? And in a race like this, I don't expect them to call it even late into the night, because it's going to be too close. There are going to be some states, and I assume there may even be recounts. Being demanded in a couple of these very important states as well.
Right. I might actually have an answer to that.
Oh,
so according to the BBC, the victor will be named late on election night or early the next morning. And this time, the tight race in many states could mean all media outlets will need to wait longer before projecting who had won. And for the based on historical or previous elections, for example, in 2020, it was announced late morning on Saturday, 7th of November, and the voting happened on the 6th of November.
Yes.
And then, after that, of course, the winner is announced, and then the new president will be elected on the 20th of January 2025.
Yeah, because last year it took 4 days for them to officially announce last election.
Yeah, because I think in a race like this, when it's so tight, I don't think either are going to concede until the actual counts are fully in and both of them have agreed with it.
No, but I would say that the last 3 elections, the U.S. elections, has been having me at the edge of my seat.
That's right. So definitely we invite all of our viewers to stay tuned to the See Today News Network throughout all of our programs today, tomorrow, and the following days in order to keep up with the latest in regards to the U.S. elections. But in the meantime, we've got other world news. We're going to shift over to Spain. Archie?
Yes, as search and rescue efforts are ongoing right now after devastating floods struck Valencia, Spain, last week.
And in the latest, the Spanish Meteorological Agency has issued a red alert for parts of Catalonia due to heavy rains. Meanwhile, local media had broadcast images of partially submerged cars on highways.
Rescue and relief efforts remain underway in Spain after flash floods swept through Valencia, Castilla-La Mancha, and Andalusia last week. The floods claimed more than 200 lives and left many victims unaccounted for. The death toll from one of Spain's biggest disasters in decades has risen to 217 as of Sunday. Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez said that this was the second deadliest flood event to hit Europe this century. Although the military and emergency services have reached many of the affected towns, some are still desperate to receive help for almost a week after the deadly floods. A school in La Torre has become a medical center, drop-off and distribution points for basic supplies, and many from the worst-hit areas come to get fresh water, milk, and other essential hygiene items. The Mestalla Stadium, which is home to Valencia Football Club, has also received food and water coming from all over the country to distribute to those in need.
The response of the people has been absolutely amazing. This is just one of the points where people can bring all kinds of supplies, food, detergent, blankets, whatever. This is just one point in the city. There are points of reception of this stuff all over the city, all over the region, and they are flooding from everywhere in the country.
Volunteers have also been helping in the worst-hit areas, while authorities continue the search for bodies in underground parking lots. The determination of the volunteers and the outpouring of help and generosity have offered a ray of light in the dark moment for the country as Spain mourns the many lives lost in the disaster.
Meanwhile, Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez met King Felipe VI for a flood crisis meeting in Madrid on Monday. This meeting took place after a crowd of enraged flood survivors pelted the Spanish king and queen with mud and rocks during their visit to Valencia City. Officials rushed Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez from the scene soon after his contingent started to walk the mud-covered streets.
4 days have passed since the tsunami-like flood swept through the southern outskirts of Valencia City and covered many communities in thick mud. Authorities have recovered 217 bodies and continue to search for an unknown number of missing victims.
Thousands of volunteers have helped clear mud in debris-covered houses amid looming power cuts and water shortages. Additionally, the downpour on Monday prompted authorities to suspend commuter rail service.
And it is quite common for authorities to visit. However, the reaction from the crowd was surprising, but there is a reason for this. Many have felt that there should have been an earlier warning system in regards to those. If you remember when this first happened, it came out pretty late that the advisory for people to stay in their homes. And many citizens were wondering why they weren't warned of this earlier, because many of them have gone to work, underground commuter lines, many were in underground parking lots where the flooding happened, and that's why the victim count was so high, over 200. Many have felt that if they had received an earlier warning system that they were able to stay home, that at least if they were stranded, even if they had to climb the roofs of their houses, they would actually be safer there as opposed to where they were. And that was why there was such a backlash over this as well. And perhaps this was what one of the things that's being discussed right now in regards to crisis management, whether an earlier warning system could have been sent out in order to keep those that were ended up being either working or commuting at home, where they would have been much safer.
Absolutely.
Yes, folks, we're going to update you more on that. And first up, we're going to have our first short break. And in the meantime, do stay connected with us.
Cerita menarik seputar barista yang ada di kedai kopi kamu. Percaya nggak sih ada orang yang nggak buang sampah selama hampir 20 tahun?
Kita punya metode. Jadi sampah-sampah dapur yang begitu bermasalah bagi orang lain, bagi kami justru kita putuskan.
Rumah Oma Kafe ini adalah tempat pertama yang menjadikan para lansia untuk menjadi pramusaji. Bersama saya di Bareng di Teman Bicara. Of happiness. It is not something that is sought, but they create it themselves with the simplicity and luxury of the nature that they love.
Hopefully, by watching this show, you don't just see beauty of tourism, but you can also realize that we live side by side with other creators. See you on other episode only on the Travel Now.
Ya mungkin namanya rumah Sinari Bumi juga tiba-tiba dari istri saya, karena banyak cahaya yang masuk gitu di rumahnya. Jadi kita namakan saja lah rumahnya Rumah Sinari Bumi.
Modern tropis dengan sentuhan Jepang dan Skandinavian.
Nah sebenarnya kalau Japandi itu kenapa agak naik daun? Karena menurutku nggak dihabis masa gitu. Kapanpun bisa dipakai, kapanpun bisa kita gunakan temanya.
Seni itu udah jalan hidup saya ya Mas ya. Bisa bertahan di dunia kesenian. Bagi saya itu udah sesuatu yang sangat mewah.
Mungkin ada yang bilang, apa sih gunanya seni itu gitu. Tapi buktinya sendiri, seni masih ada.
Tapi ya seni itu ya hidup. Kita hidup di dalam seni, kita membangun seni itu sendiri. Jadi kita menjadi satu, bahwa kita hidup di dalam seni.
What's happening now?
President Prabowo Subianto and Vice President Gibran Rakabuming Raka took their oaths of office at the Parliament building earlier today.
Exclusive interviews and all the latest in entertainment.
We don't talk only about the money, but we talk about the timing.
Spice up your afternoon with variety of up-to-date information.
Buenos Aires, Argentina, where Liam Payne passed away on Thursday.
Don't miss it, the 3-hour news show, every day at 5 p.m.
So we're rowing, and I gotta tell you, it's tough. Come on, guys, let's dig in.
Welcome back to the C Morning Show. You're still with us on C today. Now it is time for us to bring you some updates from around Indonesia. Kicking off with our first one, the Attorney General's office recently named Mariska Wijaya as a new suspect in the alleged bribery and graft case for the release of her son, Ronald Tanur, involving the Surabaya State Court.
She allegedly attempted to bribe 3 judges with the amount of 3.5 billion rupiahs to release her son from his murder verdict. Authorities brought Mariska Wijaya to the East Java Attorney General's office detention center on Monday night.
She was arrested after investigators eventually discovered sufficient evidence in her involvement in the alleged bribe and graft case for the release of her son, Ronald Tanur. Additionally, her son faced a legal battle for allegedly murdering his girlfriend, Dini Sera Afrianti. Authorities suspected her of bribing judges through her legal aide, Lisa Rahmat.
She was brought to the East Java Prosecutor's Office Detention Center to ease the investigation process. She is now officially the 5th suspect involved in the case. She has been charged with violating Articles 5 and 6 of Article 18 and Law Number 31 of 1999 regarding corruption and may face more than 10 years behind bars.
Setelah dilakukan pemeriksaan sebagai saksi terhadap MW, penyidik telah menemukan bukti yang cukup adanya tindak pidana korupsi, yaitu suap dan atau gratifikasi yang dilakukan oleh MW, sehingga penyidik meningkatkan status MW, ibu terpidana Ronald Tanur, dari status semula yaitu saksi menjadi tersangka. Selama perkara Ronald Tanur berproses sampai dengan putusan Pengadilan Negeri Surabaya, tersangka MB telah menyerahkan sejumlah uang kepada LR selaku penasihat hukum Ronald Tanur sejumlah 1,5 miliar yang diberikan secara bertahap. Selain itu, LR juga menalangi sebagian biaya pengurusan perkara tersebut sampai putusan Pengadilan Negeri Surabaya sejumlah 2 miliar, sehingga totalnya 3,5 miliar rupiah. Terhadap uang sebesar 3,5 miliar rupiah tersebut, menurut keterangan LR diberikan kepada majelis hakim yang menangani perkara dimaksud. Terhadap tersangka MB telah dilakukan penahanan selama 20 hari ke depan. Penahanan dilakukan di Rutan Kelas 1 Surabaya, Cabang Kejaksaan Tinggi, Jawa Timur.
And in other news, 10 people have sadly reportedly died after Mount Lewotobi Laki-Laki in East Flores Regency, East Nusa Tenggara erupted early morning.
Mount Lewotobi Laki-Laki in East Nusa Tenggara erupted early Monday, claiming the lives of 10 people, mostly from Klantanlo village in Wulanggitang district, East Flores Regency. The eruption has severely affected multiple villages and severely damaging a primary school building.
Korban terkait dengan Lewotobi Laki ini berjumlah sampai detik ini sudah menjadi 10 orang. Dari pagi tadi jam 7 lewat itu menginformasikan 9, dewasanya 8 dan anaknya 1. Tetapi ditambah 1 ini kami belum tahu apa dewasa atau anak, tetapi jumlah korban